The afternoon sun filtered through the tall glass windows of Café Verona, casting golden patterns on the marble floor. The place buzzed softly with laughter, clinking spoons, and the occasional hiss of an espresso machine. Amid the calm chaos sat Ethan Cole, a 28-year-old auto mechanic whose rough, grease-stained hands were trying to look comfortable around a fancy coffee cup he could barely pronounce. His heart thudded faster than a faulty engine. Today he was on a blind date, his first in years, and his best friend had convinced him that love might just need a second chance. Ethan had spent his life fixing broken things, cars, engines, even the old swing at the neighborhood park, but fixing his own heart? That was something he didn't think he was capable of anymore. As he checked the time for the 5th time, anxiety crept up his spine. He scanned the cafe, searching for a woman in a red dress, his date's supposed outfit. But as he looked around, his eyes stopped on a girl sitting alone near the window. She wore a white summer dress, her hair tied neatly, sunlight glinting off the delicate bracelet around her wrist. There was something fragile yet strong about her. Something that made Ethan forget his own nervousness. He took a deep breath, grabbed the single rose he'd awkwardly picked up on the way, and walked toward her. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. It helps us spread more real, emotional stories that touch the heart. As Ethan reached the table, the girl looked up. Her eyes were soft yet unreadable, like a lake hiding secrets beneath the still surface. "Hi," Ethan said nervously. "You must be Clara." The girl smiled politely. "Actually, I think you might be mistaken," she said quietly, her voice almost hesitant. But before Ethan could apologize and retreat in embarrassment, she gestured for him to sit. "It's okay," she added gently. "You seem harmless." So he sat. The conversation started awkwardly. Small talk about coffee flavors and weather. But soon something shifted. There was an honesty in their exchange that surprised them both. Ethan talked about his job at the garage, about growing up without much, and how cars were his escape from a world that often made him feel invisible. The girl, whose name was Isla, listened intently. She told him she used to love painting sunsets, but hadn't touched a brush in years. Her smile was soft, but seemed to carry a quiet sorrow. When Ethan accidentally dropped his spoon and bent to pick it up, his heart skipped a beat. He saw the wheelchair. The sight froze him for a second. He quickly straightened up, unsure how to respond, afraid to offend her or make her uncomfortable. But Isla noticed his hesitation and gave a small, knowing smile. "I was in a car accident 3 years ago," she said simply. "I can't walk anymore, but I can still talk your ear off if you let me." Ethan laughed, an honest, unguarded laugh that broke the tension. "Then I'm in trouble," he said, his voice softening. Hours slipped by. They talked about dreams, fears, and regrets as if they had known each other forever. Isla told him how she'd stopped painting after the accident because she couldn't bear to see beauty when she felt broken inside. Ethan told her how he'd once fallen in love but lost her to someone richer, someone who saw him as just a mechanic with dirty hands and no future. But now, as he sat with Isla, he felt something stir again, a quiet hope he thought he'd lost. When it was time to leave, Ethan offered to walk her to her car, only to realize that a sleek black luxury sedan had already arrived to pick her up. The driver opened the door, addressing her with a respectful "Miss Sinclair." Ethan's heart paused. Sinclair, as in Marcus Sinclair, the CEO of Sinclair Motors, the very company whose cars Ethan repaired at his modest neighborhood shop. Ethan stood there speechless. Isla noticed the confusion in his eyes and sighed. "You didn't know, did you?" she asked gently. "My father owns Sinclair Motors." Ethan's mind swirled. He'd spent years fixing those cars, sometimes cursing their complex designs, never imagining he'd one day share coffee with the CEO daughter. "Guess I sat at the wrong table," he murmured, trying to make light of it, but Isla smiled, Maybe it was the right one, she said softly before being driven away. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying every moment of their meeting, the way she smiled through pain, the strength in her voice, the kindness in her eyes. For days he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had done something strange and wonderful. And then, one morning, as he worked beneath a car at his garage, he heard a familiar voice. "So this is where you work." He slid out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag, and there she was, Isla, wearing a sky-blue dress, looking slightly nervous yet determined. "I wanted to see what makes you smile," she said softly. "You looked so alive when you talked about your work." Ethan blinked, stunned. "This place, it's just an old garage." "No," Isla said, looking around. "It's where broken things get fixed, maybe even people." From that day forward, she began visiting often. She'd sit by the window with her sketchpad while Ethan worked, sketching him as he laughed with his co-workers, or as sunlight hit the cars he repaired. Slowly she began painting again. The colors returned to her world, and so did her smile. Ethan, meanwhile, found himself falling deeper for the girl who saw beauty in his ordinary life. But fate wasn't done testing them. One afternoon, Marcus Sinclair himself appeared at the garage, all commanding, every bit the intimidating businessman Ethan had imagined. His gaze landed coldly on Ethan, then softened slightly when it met his daughter's. "Isla," he said sharply, "what are you doing here?" "I'm visiting a friend," she replied firmly. "Friend?" Marcus scoffed. "This man fixes tires, Isla. He's not your kind of company." The words hit Ethan like a punch, though he stayed silent. He'd been judged like this before, by people who saw his hands before his heart. Isla, however, didn't waver. "He's more honest than most people I've ever met," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "And for the first time in years, I feel happy." Marcus looked between them, his face unreadable, and left without another word. But the message was clear. Ethan didn't belong in her world. That night, Ethan sat in his small apartment, staring at his calloused hands. He thought about his mother's sacrifices, his broken dreams, and now Isla. He wanted to believe love could bridge worlds, but maybe reality wasn't so kind. The next day, when Isla came by again, he avoided her gaze. "Maybe your dad's right," he said quietly. "You deserve better." Her eyes filled with tears. "Better than someone who makes me feel alive." She whispered, "Ethan, don't do this." But he stepped back, pain tightening his chest. "You should go, Isla." She left without another word, and for weeks the garage felt emptier than ever. Ethan tried to move on, burying himself in work, but every engine he fixed, every car he touched reminded him of her. Then one day a black sedan pulled up again. Ethan sighed, expecting a customer, but when the door opened, his heart stopped. It was Marcus Sinclair. Without preamble, the man handed Ethan a rolled canvas. "She wanted you to have this," he said quietly. Ethan unrolled it, and there it was, a painting of the garage bathed in sunlight, with him in the center, smiling. Underneath, a small handwritten note read, "You fixed more than cars." "You fixed me." Ethan felt his throat tighten. How is she?" he asked, his voice barely steady. Marcus looked down, his stern expression softening. "She's better. She started therapy again, and she won't stop talking about you." He paused. "I misjudged you, Mr. Cole. My daughter taught me that dignity isn't about titles. It's about heart." A week later, Ethan was invited to a charity event hosted by Sinclair Motors. Nervous but hopeful, he walked into the grand hall, feeling completely out of place among the suits and glittering lights. But then, across the room, he saw her, Isla, radiant, sitting in her wheelchair, a soft glow in her eyes. When she saw him, her face lit up. As he approached, she whispered, "Took you long enough, mechanic." He smiled, his eyes misting. "Guess I had to fix myself first." They spent the evening talking like old times. When the lights dimmed and a slow song played, Ethan knelt beside her chair, took her hand, and said softly, "Can I have this dance?" She nodded, and they moved together, not perfectly, not gracefully, but beautifully. The crowd watched in silence as the mechanic and the CEO paralyzed daughter swayed to the music, proving that love doesn't need perfection, it just needs courage. By the end of the night, tears glistened in Isla's eyes. "You sat at the wrong table," she whispered, smiling through the tears, "and it changed everything." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us tell more stories about love, hope, and second chances. Special request: comment below with faith in kindness. If you believe that sometimes the wrong table can lead you to the right person. And as the night sky shimmered above the city, Ethan realized that some mistakes are really miracles in disguise, and that love, in its truest form, can heal what life has broken.